So to continue, so my perspectives are really kind of my involvement from the Singapore entrepreneurship perspective. But in my first startup, which was 10Cube, we also opened a development center in India. So it's not like I am completely alien to the challenges faced by entrepreneurs in India. So in this short talk, I would like to focus on a few things that I feel that are, of course, Singapore is a small, it's like a red dot. It's a city state. The challenges of India are much bigger, but at the same time, I think there are certain things that from Singapore that are interesting, and I would like to share those things with you. So, as I was saying, Singapore has this problem where, it's a small place, people are wealthy, and people leave Singapore. So, how does Singapore retain talent? How does Singapore go about promoting entrepreneurship and promoting involvement in the public sector? When people are wealthy, they can afford education other places as well. So in that sense, some of the interesting things that Singapore has done is that they have this scholarship, which is where people from Singapore, Singaporeans, go abroad. They can study in any school of their choice, and then they come back and they join the public service in Singapore. The other thing that I have been very close to is the NUS Overseas Colleges program. And in this program, basically, students are sent abroad. I personally spent 1 year in the US at Stanford. And there they work at a startup, and then they come back and bring those thoughts and values back to Singapore. And that's how I started my first company, actually. So this is an interesting thing because, like in India, as growing up in the 90s, there was most of the impetus is on bhirchal, right? It's more like you join an engineering degree, or you join a lawyer. You become an engineer, you become a lawyer, you could become a chartered accountant. Entrepreneurship as a teenager is something that you are completely not exposed to, or at least were not exposed to when I was growing up in India. So I feel that this is the first step at starting at the educational level to inculcate and put the thought of entrepreneurship in students as a career path. So I feel this is one of the things that I call nurturing the Atma. So nobody on their own has thoughts. So you have to kind of put some of these thoughts in people's minds as well. The second thing is, after you have maybe tried to go into entrepreneurship, there was a talk earlier about collateral-based capital in India, and how do you actually get capital to do a startup? And there's also talk about tender versus innovation in terms of like how do you actually get government participation and things like that. So some of the things that happened in my journey that I'm happy to share is that I participate, like there are these, even at the university level for students, with just the seed of an idea, there is funding available. And up to $30,000, just as a student, you can explore entrepreneurship. And then it culminates with a startup at Singapore business plan competition where you can win. And then that opens up to, more grants from the government that are available to you. And an interesting part about these grants is that they are awarded, like if the organization is working with an enterprise, or if the organization is working with the government, that's when these grants actually kick in. So they're the proof of concept, proof of value for commercialization of innovative strategies. So innovative technology. So if you are actually successful in having an organization believe in your technology, that's when those grants kick in. And the government involvement in the decision-making process is mostly left to the organization that is actually adopting this. So this is interesting. Another interesting thing is when we talk about collateral-based funding, there are a lot of commercial there are a lot of convertible note-based capital also available, where the government actually provides you investment in the form of a convertible note, and any future investor can buy out that convertible note at only a 10% premium. So that convertible note, which is initially starts off as debt, earns the government 10% interest, which is nothing in the high-tech entrepreneurship space. And the next investor can come and buy that out, and that converts to equity. So that's an interesting thing as well. So the other thing I would like to emphasize is the global network. So NUS has built like incubators in San Francisco, in Jakarta, in a variety of locations. And once you have a startup, you have grown, you've raised some funding, these incubators provide you opportunity to go outside of Singapore. Of course, India itself is a huge market, so a lot of these things may be replicated in terms of instead of an international context, you could have it in a national type of context where you have incubators in different states where you can possibly expand from a university point of view. So with that point, I'd like to come to the final thing, which is the tax benefits and what is so attractive. And I think this is really, what brings entrepreneurs to Singapore is that capital gains are completely tax-free in Singapore. So if an entrepreneur starts a company in Singapore, which is subsequently acquired by another company or has an IPO, the entrepreneur will know they don't pay any tax at all. And that is what has brought people like Eduardo Saverin, who is co-founder of Facebook as well, to Singapore. He resides in Singapore. So those are kind of my 5 points. Of course, I understand that the intent, inclusion, investment, infrastructure, innovation, which are cited as pillars of revival for economic growth. These are huge concepts, and India is much bigger than Singapore. And I'm much of a smaller player when it comes to the other distinguished panelists here. But that is the perspective that I would like to share. Thank you.